We also know of a recent third case, which happened in 2020, this time involved a little Queensland baby girl, unexpectedly born at 19 weeks after an abortion. Her name was Xanth. She was left to die in an empty room in the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital in December 2020. Her case reported in the Courier Mail last year. So we have the various reports and what can be guarded information around this, but we know the raw data that there's 90 babies born alive in Queensland after an abortion in the last 2 years alone. Baby Xanth's story exposes the brutal reality of the short lives of these poor children. The former Health Minister and now Premier assured the Parliament that late-term abortion would not increase under the then new laws introducing abortion up to birth. This has proven to be horribly incorrect. In 2018, before the abortion up to birth bill passed, 152 Queensland gestationally viable babies were killed via late-term abortion. By 2021, however, the number had doubled, with 304 Queensland babies tragically killed in late-term abortion.
So I do want to thank Robbie Katter and the Katter Party for their courage in bringing forward this bill that would protect the human rights of all Queenslanders from the moment of first breath. So at the moment, these little babies fall through the cracks. If they are born alive after an abortion, they do not have a legislative right to care.
Well, as you can see, the Katter Party's Robbie Katter has introduced a bill into the Queensland Parliament to require medical assistance to be rendered to babies born alive after botched abortions. A lot of people think this doesn't happen, but it clearly does. Now, joining me now to discuss this is Matt Cliff, the Executive Officer of Cherish Life Queensland. Matt, it's terrific to see this sort of advocacy for the unborn reach the floor of the Queensland Parliament. We saw Robbie Katter, the leader of the Katter Australia Party there, and Professor Joanna Howe from Adelaide, who's a terrific advocate for unborn babies. How did all this come about? I know you were involved behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Lyle. Yeah, it's been really interesting, I think, last 12 months. So I don't know if you're aware, we actually had a Senate bill, which is still looking to hopefully go through at a federal level.
Yes, no, very much aware of that.
And then we really had... Yeah, and then we really had a breakthrough actually in October where the Queensland Health actually amended their guidelines, kind of unannounced behind the scenes really. And that was a tremendous breakthrough for us because what it did then, it actually, these were peak medical body acknowledging that this does happen. So that was really helpful. And then, yeah, I've heard about this bill from that was meant to go through in Queensland, rumours of it. And then, yeah, I got the call about 2 weeks to say, look, we're going with it. And yeah, it's fascinating and I'm really excited. And we just, really glad that Robbie's tabled the bill, really.
Yeah, look, Robbie Katter, of course, the son of the legendary Bob Katter, who's still in the federal parliament after decades of serving the remote electorate of Kennedy based on Mount Isa. And I think Robbie's based there himself. He's always been pro-life, which is terrific. He stepped up, put this bill, and as you say, there's been one in the federal parliament for a while. Senator, firstly, George Christensen introduced it before he left the parliament, then Senator Alex Antic has taken it up. But at a state level now, we've got one here in Queensland. I think it's been passed in South Australia, if I'm correct in saying that they do now have protections for babies born alive after botched abortions in South Australia. But we've got a bill on the table in Queensland. How was it received when Robbie gave that speech, I think last week or quite recently? Where do you think it's going to go, or are they just going to let it die on the notice paper?
It's a good question, Lyle. Obviously, we don't know yet, to be honest, how it was received. We're a bit disappointed that mainstream media have not really got behind it, which is, to be honest, to be expected a little bit at the moment. But we will keep pushing, and ultimately we feel that, with the use of social media, there's been a lot of outcry, which has been fantastic. I know Joanna is fantastic on social media. She's really kind of, raising awareness about this issue. We're doing our bit, ACL are doing their bit as well. So we're confident that we can get it to where we need it to be.
Look, I think just getting it into the parliament, look, you and I know that unfortunately this issue of human rights for unborn babies is ignored by the mainstream media, sadly. But to have parliamentarians like Robbie Katter with the courage to actually bring it forward, to get it on the agenda, to get it read into Hansard, and he mentioned some very compelling statistics there because as I said at the start, a lot of people think this is just stuff made up by pro-lifers, but he mentioned about 90 babies in the last couple of years in Queensland alone, born alive, left to die. I think 30 a year. I mean, you probably have a better handle on the statistics than myself, but this is real, isn't it?
Absolutely. When we did when we were in the Senate, Alex Antic made a good point. He said most Australians would be horrified to know that this happens. And that's the reality. And even with the bill, the federal bill, I was just pleased that we were getting some exposure, to get this out and let whatever happens from there happen. But now we get, again, the Queensland bill just gives us further exposure. And once Australians know this happens, we are just hopeful that they will also join in that outcry as well.
Yeah, this is very much part of the educative process, breaking through that sound barrier that is imposed by the mainstream media, the media blackout on this. Matt, we should give credit to the Queensland Liberal National Party MP, Dr. Mark Robinson, who's a good friend of mine. He, many years ago, was one of the first, along with Nick Goiran in the Western Australian Parliament, to expose the fact that babies were being born alive and left to die. It was many, many years ago. Unfortunately, their attempts, have been unsuccessful, but it has led to these bills being brought forward. I think it's a great pity that the Queensland LNP leader David Crisafulli won't allow his members, including Mark and his candidates in the lead up to the election, to even talk about the issue of abortion. Why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, well, let me just touch on what you said about Mark first. I think you make a great point. We ultimately the guidelines that I was pushing in my Senate testimony were from Mark. And that they were the Queensland health guideline statistics. And without that, really, I don't know where we would be. We'd probably still be a little bit behind. So I want to just thank Mark publicly on record. We are very appreciative of him. To go to your next question regarding, the LNP stance, look, we're extremely disappointed. Lyle, we cannot get around that. Well, we're extremely disappointed with Crisafulli's recent comments. It comes a bit out of the blue. We don't know why he would even say this publicly, really, but there you go. He also seems reluctant to really meet with any pro-life organisations, which again is disappointing. However, we're always encouraged that behind the scenes and within the party, there are definitely pro-life advocates. One you've just mentioned there, Mark. And look, we'll continue to work with them very closely. So, but yeah, disappointed in his recent comments. And it was strange. I think we're going to get to it in a moment. But with the most recent bill, that they did vote against the clause 22. But we're just seeking really clarification on where he stands moving forward.
Yeah, well, that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing, Matt, to have people like yourself and obviously ACL, who you mentioned, who are constantly bringing before parliamentarians the pro-life cause, the pro-woman cause. It is disappointing that David Crisafulli has come out publicly in about October last year, a year before the state election, which is due this October, and he said if he's elected Premier of Queensland, there will be no changes to Queensland's horrific abortion to birth law. And we heard Robbie Katter in that opening clip say that late-term abortions have doubled from 150 to over 300 since 2018 when abortion to birth was decriminalised. How do you think David Crisafulli's statement is playing out amongst the pro-life community in Queensland? I mean, that's a pretty obvious question, but tell us what you're hearing from your supporters and members.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you my perspective first. I think, we know that the ALP in Queensland have totally embraced an anti-life ideology, sadly. Our big concern is that ideology is starting to creep into the LNP. And that's where we see a major issue, to be honest. And I think our supporters are aware of that they're seeing very much the same kind of information about abortion that's coming out from the LNP is basically absolutely similar to what's coming out of the LNP. So again, but we have mentioned there are candidates within the LNP who are pro-life, definitely pro-life. So Yeah, it's disappointing. How it's going to affect the vote. Obviously, look, a lot of our members and supporters, the protection of the unborn is a primary voting issue. So, of course, if you come out and say, look, we're not going to do anything, that's definitely going to affect our supporters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned, and we want to give credit where credit's due with the LNP, because you touched on this a moment ago. The Labor government recently introduced some further law reform with regard to abortion in terms of allowing the abortion drug RU486. It's called various other names. It's essentially a chemical way of poisoning and killing unborn babies at the very early stages. But they changed the law just a few weeks ago to allow this chemical to be prescribed by nurses. Now, as you said, the LNP, they all voted against that, and good on them. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't advocate, but they just did the right thing in the parliament. Now, we obviously need public advocacy. But what are the likely consequences now of allowing nurses to prescribe this dangerous drug to women, particularly in remote areas?
Yeah, look, we oppose the bill for really three key reasons. The first one, it obviously presents a significant risk to vulnerable women. And I've just got some peak medical concerns here. I'll give you an example. This is Dr. Nick Yim of the Australian Medical Association. He rejected the clause also. He stated that it is not safe for registered nurses to administer these medicines outside of a collaborative setting without appropriate clinical oversight. So again, it's not just obviously us who ideologically disagree and morally disagree. This is peak medical institutions. The AMA is one of them. And I think that the concern is it's not Lyle. The question is not if, but when this goes wrong. That's what's really sad for us. That's our big concern. The second one really is that it places a burden of conscience on midwives and nurses, many of which got involved in the profession to save life, not to take life. And we've got a lot of emails in saying that this is so serious that many are deciding to either leave the profession or not even go into the profession.
Wow.
So yeah.
Can I just ask, just on that, Matt, and I must admit, I'm not across the detail of this latest bill, but are you saying that there's a coercive aspect behind this decision to allow nurses and midwives to prescribe RU486, that if they decline to do that, that they could be in breach of the law, just as if a doctor or a nurse declines to be involved in an abortion procedure under the current abortion laws?
No, I'm not. So they still have conscientious objection,
right? Okay.
But obviously, within the profession, there will be peer pressure, of course.
Yes.
And the danger always with these things, again, it's hypothetical in a sense, but they may be looked over where they're not willing to do this procedure. That's like, or not willing to give these pills. So that's the real concern, to be honest. And again, just morally for nurses who don't want to do this, don't want to be a part of the profession that does this.
Yeah, no, you're quite. I see your point. But certainly the moral and the peer pressure is very real, even if it's not coercive legislatively like it is for euthanasia and abortion itself, or surgical abortion, I should say. Matt, when is the next March for Life in Queensland? I know those marches have been very big over the years, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, so our next march is on June the 8th, Saturday, June the 8th, 2 p.m. outside Parliament House, Speaker's Corner. The marches, Lyle, are a very low-ball way of showing your opposition to what's happening in the Parliament. And we just want to encourage everyone, if you're available on that day, to show up. Our strength is in numbers. And again, you may feel like you're not making much difference, but again, it's huge for us and it's huge for the movements. And yeah, if you can, that's June the 8th, Saturday, June the 8th at 2 p.m.
Really important if you're someone who lives in Queensland, make sure you get along to that. They certainly happen in other capital cities. They are awesome events. And as a pro-life person myself who's been to many of these marches, you just feel the encouragement that you're not alone in this fight. And it's a very strong public demonstration. Matt, just finally, we've mentioned the election coming up in October. What is Cherish Life's plans for the election? Have you got any special initiatives to get the pro-life cause onto the electoral agenda, particularly when both sides of politics don't really want to talk about this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we are going to be actively involved in the election. We are always, I think, our goal is to support pro-life candidates. That's essentially what we want to do. So if there's any pro-life candidates listening, we definitely want to come and help you if that is possible. I think, again, going back to our earlier point, Lyle, again, we're knowing that the ALP have embraced this anti-life ideology and the LNP are at risk of fully embracing it. We just want to call LNP back from the ledge. That's the goal. We want to be able to say, look, we need this issue. We want our campaign slogan is going to be put life first. We want politicians to put life first, to put this issue at the forefront, not kind of lower underneath.
That sounds fantastic, Matt. Well, where can people go to keep an eye on your work? What's your website, social media credentials?
Yeah, so our website is www.cherishlife.org.au. We have an Instagram, we have Facebook, we have YouTube, and we also have Twitter, or X as it's known now. But yeah, please follow us and support us, and also just to keep you informed about the legislation and what's going on in Queensland as well.
Fantastic, Matt. Well, I really appreciate you giving your time today, and we'll look forward to chatting to you again sometime in the lead up to the election. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lyle.